The original Resident Evil 4 is not a game that I particularly love like most people do. If anything, it's a game I respect more than I enjoy playing myself. There's things that I do like: the merchant, the music, the general design philosophy, and the emphasis on action. But the tank controls, quick time events, stiff aiming, and Ashley, just all of Ashley, was enough to make me stop playing time and time again. That's a great song by Papa Roach, by the way. I've played the opening hours multiple times on at least 4 different platforms, and I've never made it past the castle section. The farthest I've got was the sewer after the Garrador fight, and at this point I've come to peace that I'll never get farther than that. I wouldn't go so far to say that it's a bad game or that it needed a remake, but to say that I was excited when the remake was announced is a bit of an understatement. Both 2 and 3 were some of my favorite games of the past few years, and since this is the only game where I was familiar with the source material, I was somehow worried that Capcom was going to fuck up this third over-the-shoulder remake. Thankfully, I, like everyone else on the planet, wasn't disappointed. I can confirm firsthand that Resi 4 Remake is a great game, and one of the few that I can recommend to almost anyone for the full asking price of $60, regardless of whether or not you're a fan of the original, or even Resident Evil in general. It's somehow simultaneously the most faithful out of the 3 remakes, while also maintaining the reputation these games have of being different from their source material. The most notable difference you'll see, even from the trailers, is obviously the tone. And this isn't just a random change to differentiate this from the original. In 2013, Shinji Mikami, creator of the series and director of the original Resident Evil 4, spoke to IGN and stated that it would have been a, quote, more scary horror-focused game if the Resident Evil GameCube remake had sold well. End quote. That remake failing financially led to the course correct that was Resi 4's emphasis on action, which began a trend of Resi games that weren't really focused on horror, and then that ended up dividing the franchise, leading us to where we are today with 2 different concurrent gameplay styles. Thankfully for both camps, there's much more of a equal meld of action and horror this time around. It's still very goofy. Leon says the line, "Where's everyone going? Bingo." But there's lots of visuals that ended up reminding me of the many prototypes of the original game. There's even specific gameplay sections that feel completely lifted from Village and its Shadow of Rose DLC. If you play the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The new additions don't alter the core of the game too much. It's still all very Resident Evil 4, both in terms of the map layouts being very close recreations of the original, as well as the cheesier dialogue and over-the-top action set pieces like shooting Dr. Salvador while in a minecart or the jet ski Warthog run. It's all still very 2005, just with a very, very beautiful new coat of paint. The remake does add a lot more character development and screen time for the supporting cast, which is always a good thing. Ada has entirely new scenes, while Luis and Krauser's backstories are evolved upon. But the biggest change by far is Ashley. In the original game, Ashley just felt like a nuisance who put a damper on all the fun when she was there, which is a big fucking problem if the entire game is about saving her. But in the remake, she and Leon feel much more like a team trying to survive together, which is much more akin to the rest of the earlier titles in the series. Chris and Jill, Claire and Leon, Jill and Carlos, you get the idea. For a franchise where the story is often laughed at by both longtime fans and newcomers, there's some damn good characterization in these games that makes us want to come back again and again, even if you're just getting your hand chopped off over and over again or just punching a boulder. And I am finally glad that Ashley is added to the list of good protagonists I'd like to see again. Gameplay wise, this is exactly what I wanted when this remake was rumored a few years back. It takes all of Resi 4's unique mechanics, like melee attacks, attaché case, and the merchant system, and adds them into a more modern control scheme without the tank controls, while cutting the stuff that doesn't work as much, like the excessive quick time events. Thank God. Your knife has been completely revamped. There's a durability system akin to 2, but now you can parry attacks with it, allowing players to stop certain one-hit kills, which makes Dr. Salvador and the Bella twins less of a headache to encounter, at least on paper. The end result is arguably my favorite Resident Evil game. I'm sorry, Resi 3, I have a new favorite child. It's just everything I love about the series' action-heavy installments dialed up to 11. The enemy types are constantly switching depending on what part of the game you're in. Of course, there's the Ganados, but then you get to the Zealots, and then eventually the fucking Regenerators later on in the story. Every boss fight is just so much fun, I can't even pick a favorite. I'm kidding, it's Krauser. Then there's the gameplay loop of collecting treasure and upgrading weapons. It all makes for a game that I can constantly return to. I ended up putting 40 hours in within a couple of weeks over the course of 4 playthroughs on different difficulties, and I'm very sure that I'll replay it at some point in the future when I don't have all these games on my plate. Of course, while this game is perfect, it's not flawless. To counteract Leon's speed and ability to move while aiming in this game, the Ganados are much more aggressive. They're quick, travel in packs, and are more prone to grabbing, which leads the player into one of the few remaining QuickTime events. This isn't really a problem for the most part, and is honestly more enjoyable in my eyes. It makes for a more fast-paced experience, which is what I tend to lean towards. But that sort of fun challenge begins to wane as you raise the difficulty. Hardcore mode is brought down by the sheer speed and amount of Ganados that the game throws at you, making the Ashley sections more frustrating than the original game. It kind of does all the work that Capcom did to make her feel like less of a nuisance. It's also a little patronizing that the game touts it as a difficulty made for those who have played the original Resident Evil 4, when it should probably say those who mastered the fucking thing. The most infuriating is the catapult section at the beginning of the castle, since Ashley can get caught in a loop of being incapacitated again and again and again. It just feels unfair and annoying, which is not what you want in a difficult game. However, once you finish your first playthrough, that's where the real fun begins, since replayability is one of the biggest selling points of Resident Evil games, and this one does not disappoint. The attention to detail in the world allows the player to use their knowledge to completely skip parts of the game. You can shoot the bell to skip the village fight, you can throw a grenade to skip unlocking the door in the farm, you can kill the summoner at the lever in the castle so that you don't get dropped down, and you get the idea. This isn't even mentioning all the different guns that you can buy, side missions you can complete for the merchant, the 32 collectible charms that buff Leon in different ways, the expanded shooting range, and mercenaries mode. In terms of unlockables, Capcom did a pretty good job for the most part. The pinstripe outfit and armor for Ashley return, however the RPD outfit is omitted. You just drop the model in. I don't get it. And the omission of Ada and Wesker from Mercenaries is a bit disappointing. Fingers crossed that they adapt separate ways as DLC. To replace them, the devs have added Louise, who's fine. I guess he gets the job done. He's fine enough. The charm system is a great addition on paper, but its implementation leaves a bit to be desired. Like I stated earlier, there's 32 charms, and from what little I've been able to gather, only a certain amount are seeded into a specific playthrough. Meaning that, if the specific charm you want isn't available out of the 4 combinations of the silver and gold coins you can collect from the shooting range, you'd have to start an entirely new game. And the first chance you get to use the machine is in Mission 3. So prepare to be replaying the opening hour if you want to 100% the game, you sicko. This sort of random gacha system forces the player to choose the game in a way that sort of feels like you cheated it in order to get ahead. Like, I'm not a developer and I don't code at all, but I don't understand why you just can't have them randomly occur. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Recently, Capcom's been doing a thing where they include reward shops in their RE games after the first playthrough, and that unlockable criteria syncs up to achievements, allowing the player to unlock new content while also getting closer to a platinum trophy. 4 follows in the same vein, but also has a system similar to 2 as well as the original game, where certain items can only be unlocked after completing specific requirements. Personally, I preferred 8 and 3's unlock shop a bit more. Completing unlockable criteria gave you points which you can use in a shop to buy whatever you could afford. But with the system in 4 Remake, you end up unlocking the best stuff after already completing the game on the hardest difficulty. I get that this is like the smallest nitpick I could ever complain about. I need a magnifying glass to even see it on my script, but I still can't imagine how this is more convenient or fulfilling than a standard reward shop. There's also paid DLC in the form of these exclusive upgrade tickets. They can be earned through gameplay, but by using one of these passes, you could fully upgrade a weapon and receive its special ability, overpowering the player. It's basically just a fucking paid cheat code. While this still isn't the best, I'm less bothered by this than I am by the rest of the DLC. There's the ability to have the original game's music, but it's $3. I cannot count how many times Capcom has done this. After a few games, charging for this gets a bit old. At this point, it should just come with the game from the start. Even Square Enix's greedy ass includes the original soundtrack in the 10-10-2 remaster of Final Fantasy. However, the cosmetics are the most bothersome in terms of pricing. Each costume for Leon is $3, and the costume packs that are for both Leon and Ashley are $4. All in all, it's $14 for all the additional costumes. But hey, that's not even mentioning the exclusive weapons and additional treasure map. Give it a month or so and they'll probably also release DLC to unlock all the in-game rewards like they have with 2 and 3. I've been bothered by Capcom's pricing and business strategies for a long time now. I made a video 3 years ago solely complaining about their Switch re-releases. I initially wanted to talk about DMC5 Special Edition, but it's the same game for $40, just faster. But their DLC is just so fucking terrible that it teeters on Atlas or Marvelous Games levels of penny pinching. Not to mention that the PC release came with the latest version of Denuvo, and it already got cracked back in May. Why they still keep using it, I will never fucking know. All in all, my complaints are more minor with the pricing, as well as difficulty balancing and unlockables. The core game itself is still pretty perfect. There's little things, both positive and negative, that cements that this game is its own thing that was never going to fully replace the original. If anything, this remake was the closest thing to a unique experience for both longtime fans and newcomers, while still being able to call itself Resident Evil 4. Unless you talk about the VR port, I don't have a Quest, so I haven't played that yet. Anyone calling this game soulless or a cash grab just hasn't played it. Like, you can have your own opinion, you can not like this game, I don't give a shit, but if you say that, you're just fucking wrong. The dev team has put an intense amount of polish and detail into this game, so much so that it almost begs to be replayed and speedran. Is speedran a word? However, as much as I love this game and it's my new favorite Resident Evil installment, I don't think I'm the only one who thinks that the series should stop with remakes and move forward with new entries. For 3 remakes that were made almost back to back over the course of 4+ years, Capcom has made a nearly perfect trilogy of games. As much as I'd like Resident Evil 5 to not have weird controls, I don't think that it warrants a full remake. It would just be a pretty diminishing return to fully remake games that are, for the most part, pretty modern. If they forced themselves to put out some sort of remake or reboot, I'd like to see the spin-offs get some love. Most obvious being Code Veronica, maybe a sequel to Outbreak, a new FPS in the Survivor sub-series, a new separate Mercenaries game a la the 3DS title that takes characters from both 4 and Village. I'd love to fucking see that. Or, God forbid, a new title in the series, one that focuses on both new characters as well as some underrated old favorites. But considering how many units this sold and how many videos and articles that have been made, Capcom will remake 5 and probably 6, run this shit into the fucking ground, and then have to reinvent the series again to save it from itself. Anyways, buy Resident Evil 4 Remake. If nothing else, then buy it for Leon's fucking sick-ass beanie. I know I hate the paid DLC, but I couldn't help myself. He looks like he'd watch Family Guy in his launch model Xbox 360 with the fucking memory card. I love it. But anyways, that's all I had to say this time around. I hope you all enjoyed this review of Resident Evil 4. I'll be back very soon with a review of Jedi Survivor. Until then, like, subscribe, and all that jazz. I'll catch you guys next time. Later, kids. Have a good night.
The biggest change is that the game now has a fully polygonal engine, characters, and backgrounds. We've also gone from a fixed camera to a rear camera, more of a first-person perspective. The actual controls themselves haven't really changed all that much, although this time Leon will be able to aim for specific body parts like the head, arms, stomach, or legs.